Happy morning, dear friends. Here's yours, Dr. Rajanta. Welcome to day 48 session. Here today we are just going to learn about object-oriented programming in Python and its fundamental concepts with some examples. Okay, dear friends, let me just move on to object-oriented programming. In Python is a multiple paradigm programming language. It supports different programming approaches. So one of the popular approach to solve programming problem is by creating objects. So this is known as the object-oriented programming. So object-oriented programming is a programming paradigm based on the concepts of objects. The objects contains both data and code. So data is in the form of properties, which also known as the attributes, and code in the form of methods, that is actions, objects that can perform. So object has two characteristics. One is attributes and the behavior. Where attributes, see for an example, a parrot it can be an object as it has some properties like name, age and color as attributes and singing, dancing as behavior. So the concept of object oriented programming in Python focuses on creating reusable code. So this concept is also known as DRY, that is don't repeat yourself. Okay, the concept of object oriented programming follows with some basic principle. Let me just switch on to class. In Python, everything is an object. A class is a blueprint of the object. So to create an object, we require a model or a plan or blueprint, which is nothing but class. So we create class to create an object. A class is like an object constructor or a blueprint for creating objects. So we instantiate a class to create an object. The class defines attributes and the behavior of the object, while the object on the other hand represents the class. And see here, dear friends, the class represents the property which I have already said as like attributes and the action which is as the behavior of that objects. And property represents variables and actions are represented by the methods. Hence, class contains both variables and methods. We can think of class as a sketch for a parrot with labels. It contains all the details about the names or colors, size, etc. Based on this description, we can study about the parrot. And here it is a parrot, and which is an object. And kindly have a look of this syntax. So here we are just going to create a class name where with the document strings and the class search. And this document string which represents the description of the class which is an optional. And when coming to class suite contains components, component statements, variables, methods, functions and attributes. And here is the exact example for the parrot. And here we use the class keyword to define an empty class parrot. From class, we construct instance, and an instance is specific object created from the particular class. And see here, dear friends, when we just make use of this as a person, yeah, we can just create the same as with the particular class too. Okay, let me just see this with an example. See here, dear friends, we are having a person as a class, and here it is instantiated, and by using the keyword class, we define an empty class person, and from class we construct instance, and an instance is a specific object created from a particular class. And here it is the class is of person. Let I just execute it. See here, dear friends, this is the class name. Okay, let's just move on to object. See here, dear friends, a physical existence of a class is nothing but an object. In other words, the object is an entity that has a state and behavior. Therefore, an object which is an instance is an instantiation of a class. So we can, when class is defined, only the description for the object is defined. So there are no, therefore no memory or storage is allocated. And see here, dear friends, here it is the exact reference variable where you're just going to create the object and which is the class name. And when coming to the example of the parrot class, yeah, here it is the object and of a class parrot. Suppose we have details of parrot. Now we are going to show how to build the class and objects of the parrots. And here it is, dear friends, so objects of a parrot. So we are just going to call the parrot and to the same P, which is the person, object of the person. And let me just see it with an example. So here we just going to call the person and where P is the object and the class person, and here from the person the object has been initiated. Okay, let me just move on to the next one. See here, dear friends, we are just going to create a class student, and inside the class some definitions, that is we are just calling the functions and where it's just going to print something. And here the stud is the object of the class student. And when you just want to call the function of that class student, which is one of the method, and that can be done by calling the method as stdu.learn, and the learn is the one of the methods which has been defined inside the student. Okay, I just execute it and see here, dear friends, when I'm just calling this object, yeah, it has been defined. Let me just move on to class constructor. In the example above, we have created an object from the person class. However, a class without a constructor is not really useful in real applications. So let us use constructor functions to make our class more useful. So like the constructor function in Java or JavaScript, Python has also a built-in function which we just say the underscore init underscore. This is what. So this is the exact constructor functions, and this construction function has self parameter with is reference to the current instance of the class. And let me just have the exact class calling. See here, we have already specified some the name and to that of self, and which is just going to attach as a parameter to the class. And just execute. See here, dear friends, this is the exact person, that is the object of the person. P is the object of the class person, and it's just going to specify only the name. Yeah, that name you are just going to pass it by the variable as an attribute. Okay, let us add more parameter to the constructor functions. Okay, so see here, dear friends, we are just going to include the self. Okay, self, in that self, yeah, we are just going to add the first name, the last name, age, country and city. And here the self is the exact object. We are just going to make use of it. That is the function, and where here the underscore init underscore, it is the exact constructor where the that is the class constructor where we are just having so many parameters added to that. And once on creating, that is initiating the object P from the person class, we are having the attributes, that is the parameters of the function init, that is the constructor functions, which has first name, last name, age, country and city, and according to that it is thus executing the output. Okay, next let me just move on to the instance variable and method. Dear friends, if the value of a variable varies from object to object, then such variables are called as instant variables. For every object, a separate copy of an instant variable will be created. When we create class in Python, instance methods are used regularly. We need to create an object to execute the block of the code or action defined in the instance method. We can access the instant variable and method by using the object and using a dot operator to access the instance variables and the methods. And in Python, working with an instance variable and methods, we use the self keyword. When we use the self keyword as a parameter to the method or with the variable name is called the instant itself. And kindly have a note of it, dear friend. Instant variables are used within the instant method. Okay. Fine. Let me just have it with an example. So see here, this is the exact class student, and inside we are just having the class constructor in it. Okay. And these are the parameters of the constructor, and when on just making the initiation, and as I have already said, this is the instant variable self with the keyword self, and with that you can just make use of the variable, that is instant variable, as with a dot operator, that is self dot name self dot percentage. And when on just calling the method, we can just make use of that instant variable within the method, and when on just initiating the object of the class stud, okay, and it's just going to give us the execution output. And kindly have a note of it. I just execute the above example, and see here, this is the exact. So here it just gives the name is colon and then with the self name, and here when on just passing the function call itself, it just going to give the value of the parameter, that is the attribute. So here Arthur is the first self name and the percentage is 90. Okay, let me just give it some more creating a class and objects in Python. Have a look of it, dear friends. See, in this example, we create a class with the name parrot. Then we define the attributes. Okay, the attributes are the characteristic of this object, and these objects are defined inside the init, that is the constructor, that is the method of the class, and it is the initializer method that is first run as soon as the object is created. So then we create instant of the parrot class. And see here, dear friends, here this blue and woe are the reference value to our new objects. And we can access the class attributes using underscore class underscore. This is the exact class attributes. And when just making use of that class attributes are the same for all instance of a class. Similarly, we access the instant attribute using us like BLU and with the name. So here BLU dot name and BLU dot age. So how our instant attributes are different for every instance of a class. So here, see here, as when I'm just creating two more instances, yeah, wo dot name and wo dot age. So this is blue dot name and wo dot name are different. So different for every each instance of classes. Okay, let I just execute it. See here, dear friends, blue is a bird. O is also a bird. When you just repeat it, yeah, it just gives the also. And see here, blue is 10 years old and O is 15 years old. This is how you can just access the instant attributes. Okay, let me just move on to objects. See, object method or functions defined inside the body of a class. So they are used to define the behavior of an object. So object can have methods, and the methods are functions which belong to the objects. And see here, dear friends, here we are just going to see it with an example. The class, the person is the class, where here the definition as it is the constructor, and when I'm just making use of the object method or just defined by using inside the body of that class, and they are used to define the behavior of that object. And see here, dear friends, here when on just providing the instant object attributes, and here we are having so many parameters as like first name, last name, age, country and city. And when I just create an instant p is equal to the person, that is the class of, here I am just giving the value of the first instance. And here when I'm just calling the object method, it just executes, what is it? So p is equal to person of which one? The first name is Ajanta, second name, last name is Devi, and age is 96. And see here, C lives in the city and the country it just provides. And see here where I just give the country as the first one and India, and city as the second. But when I just provide the exact placeholder value here, and see how it just executes. He lives in Chennai and India. Okay, dear friends, let me just create object methods, few more things with an example. See here, dear friends, with the same, parrot, the class parrot has been defined with the instant attributes. As a constructor instant attributes, we are just having the self keyword with the parameter of name and age. Okay, next we are just going to create two instant methods, that is sing and dance, where this defined, these are called instance method because they are called on an instant object, as like blue and woe, which we have just seen in the above example. And see here, dear friends, when we just make use of this blue, that is the instant of the object, when we just call it, this class has to be initiated, and here the value of the exact name and age, which is the attribute of that self method. Okay, and when I'm just giving sing is the exact method, object method. Here happy is the attribute of which is related to that song. And here when coming to calling the second instant method as dance, is done, now dancing. So that is what it's just going to execute. Let me just see the output. See here, blue sings happy, the song is happy, and blue is now dancing. So this is the exact second method it has been initiated. Okay, next let me just see with some default method. See here, dear friends, sometimes you may want to have a default value for your objects. Okay, objects method. So if we give default values for the parameter in the constructor, we can avoid errors when we call or initiate our class without parameters. So let's see how it looks. And see here, dear friends, here I have given a default method. That is, the default method is here it should be the first name, last name and the age. And see here, one more information I have to be added, that is, I have mentioned my name as myself, all the things, and here I have specified she lives in. But when I just give my exact object initiation, the first object as p1, and it just defaultly call my function parameter with the methods as person info. But when I just make my friends, actually there is a Ben Dio, actually it has to come as he lives. See here, dear friends, so this is also seems to be as she lives. So when on just making the default method, kindly have a look to which values do you want. So if we give default value for a parameter in the construction, we can avoid errors when we call or initiate our class without parameters. But when we just make use of that method, kindly have a sense of what we are using and where we are making it to be defined. Okay, and same thing, let I just make it with an example, that is here what we are just going to do is the same person as a class, and all the constructor parameters have default values, and in addition to that we have skill parameters which we can access using a method. And here let us create one more method, that is add skill, and with that it is just going to give the default as these are all the add skill. So the value of add skill when we just give is Python, MATLAB and R. So here if we just execute it to be the true, already I have specified, yeah, when my name is specified, yeah, here it just comes as C list, but when my friend's name, yeah, it is also as a default values and methods, that also it would be executed by us like C list. And see here, dear friends, when I just make use of the Python, see P1, P1, P1. Here we just added skills for the P1, that is the initiation of person 1. And here we have added the skills for persons 1. But here for the person 2, we didn't add any skills. We didn't add any skills here. If we have, that is what I have already specified, that the objects values for the objects P1 and P2 are different. So whatever the values you are just specifying, and here you have just given only the add skills for P1 and not P2, so that P2, that is the add skills of P2, is empty. Okay, dear friends, still some more you oops concepts are there. Let me just discuss in tomorrow's session. Have a nice day. Thank you.